Hello everyone, welcome to Winging It F1. Today we're going to talk about the US Grand Prix strategy and who got it right, Hamilton or Verstappen, even though Verstappen won, so probably he got it right and not Hamilton. But anyway, let's go. Right, I'm Freddie and I'm with Adam and Nigel and we're going to discuss it. Nigel, you start. You want to talk about how Hamilton's strategy is really bad.
No, I don't.
Great start.
I think neither team got it wrong. I think they did everything right for what they could have done. Verstappen went aggressive. Hamilton had to go long. You know, if he pitted the next lap, he would have been overtaken. So I think it was a case of two very evenly matched cars. I don't think there's anything to separate them. And two very evenly matched drivers during the race. And that's why the gap was so close at the end. I don't think anyone had an advantage. And it was one of those cases where it was kind of better to be second so you could do the undercut, because to pit from the lead and give away track position is, you have to be quite bold to do that. You have to be quite brave. So I don't think Mercedes or Red Bull did anything wrong for me.
I'm not sure. It's really difficult. Do you think Mercedes could have done a preemptive undercut like they did in Bahrain, for example? Because I think that might have been maybe where they could have made up the ground. I mean, it's a tough call to make at the time, but I guess knowing what we know now, then maybe that could have been the better option.
And I think the tyre advantage, I think they would have thought the tyres wouldn't last because it was quite clear it'd be a two-stop. And I think the tyre deck was quite high and Verstappen was hanging on, really. So I don't think Mercedes, they'll look back. It's not like other races like Zandvoort. I think I gave them I criticised them because I think they missed out there. But this race, I don't think I can really fault them for it.
When Verstappen came into pit after his first stint, his tyres were worn to shreds. So if Hamilton had gone in before that, he wouldn't have been able to hold Verstappen back. I think the Mercedes strategy was the best it could have been, really, with the pace Mercedes had all for that weekend at COTA. I think they were blindsided a bit by how good Red Bull were, because riding the bumps off the track, basically, it was a really bumpy track surface. And Red Bull were able to ride that much better than Mercedes were, because Mercedes have got that kind of bodged rear floor of the car from the regulations that came in at the start of the year for 2021. And that's kind of always meant that the Red Bull have got that slight advantage in that part of the car, and that was getting affected a lot, which meant that Red Bull just had that, they had more to play with. And if Hamilton had gone for an undercut on Verstappen, I think Verstappen would have been able to pass Hamilton at the end much easier than Hamilton on Verstappen. We saw how much the dirty air affected Hamilton. I think that the Red Bull would have just been able to get a bit closer at the start of the track than Hamilton was able to be able to mount a challenge in the back of the track. Does that wash with you, or do you think the straight line speed in the Merc is too good?
So do you think Red Bull had a better car then, slightly?
I think they had a better car for the bumps that threw off Mercedes. If you look at the pace in the first, in terms of race pace, Red Bull had a better car. You look at the first stint, Verstappen's able to hang on to Hamilton. Hamilton's essentially dying on those tyres, and Verstappen can keep close. I think if Verstappen had kept the lead at the start, maybe we would have seen something different. But I think because Hamilton took the lead, I think it would have been better for Mercedes if they were in second.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. So that's why I don't think. Because if you think Red Bull had a better car, surely Verstappen, when he's in the lead, would have got a 3, 4, 5 second gap. If you think Red Bull had a better car,
well, I think they just had they needed to look after the tyres more because they were making the stint longer. I think if you have the same length of stint, basically, if Hamilton and Verstappen pit on the exact same lap, say they both pit on lap 40, I think Verstappen would have made it gap. But I think because Verstappen pit on wherever it was, sort of lap, I want to say 30 odd to go to lap 56. And having pitted on lap 10 to get to that far, that meant that was sort of 20 odd laps is sort of the maximum he can draw out the tyres. And his second stint his early lap times were conserving lap times. He was really conserving the tyre, and he was doing that all the way through, I think, from that stint. I think he had to. I think Hamilton was able to be pushing a lot more in that final stint because he went long on the first stint, because he just did a really good job on looking after his early tyres. Did Hamilton, his mediums, before he went onto the hard. And he had an opportunity to push a bit harder at the end, which allowed him to close. And I think the Merc strategy to get that close to the Red Bull by the end of the race is successful for me. I think it's a lot more Hamilton than it is the car.
I think they're both just even. I really think there's absolutely nothing. I think the two world-class drivers pulled away from the whole field, both at the top of the game. Pressure's on as well. Only 5 races to go now. I think they both just delivered, and I think Verstappen to get pole and win. You know, it was a weekend worthy of winning this year's title for me. So equally, I don't think Hamilton did anything wrong either. So yeah.
I think maybe, I mean, to me, I think Red Bull had the slight pace advantage. I think, especially over qualifying and then the first stint of the race, it just, you know, it was clear Verstappen had a bit more pace, I think, and you could tell as much by his frustration being stuck behind Hamilton when he felt he could get ahead. And I think that's maybe the factor that makes me think maybe it could have been worth, you know, given that it's at COTA, which isn't the easiest track to overtake on, and the big, you know, I don't know. I think with the Mercedes straight line speed and the way cars can wash off in the dirty air on the way to the straights, I think maybe it's really difficult to say. Like you say, it came down to a margin of 1.3 seconds, so it was a really, really close margin. But you know, obviously now what we know, looking back, maybe it would have been better to try and mirror or preempt Red Bull strategy. But having said that, there was also the Perez factor at the start of the race that is difficult to kind of quantify or see. That's kind of too many variables put in how it would have gone. But you know, it's maybe, I think, like you said, Nigel, it's a win that was really up for grabs for either of them, and the fact that Verstappen's got that, you know, I think that's quite a key thing, because neither of them had a clear advantage here. I think Red Bull had a slight advantage, but I don't think either of them had a major advantage. And again, Red Bull have come away with the win again, like they have in other marginal races.
What impressed me most with Verstappen is he was initially behind Perez in qualifying, and then Hamilton went faster, so he had to deliver on that lap, and he did. And then in the race, his tyre, he played it perfectly with the tyres on it, especially in the first, perhaps not the second, so he maybe went a bit too fast early on, but he just doesn't have any weaknesses now. Because I think one area where I thought Hamilton is slightly better is the tyres. So, but I think this race has kind of changed my mind a bit. And I think there's 3 races this year, or 3 race weekends, where Verstappen has kind of, for me, gone, right, the pressure doesn't really affect him. And that's France, where I think Mercedes had a slightly faster car, but Verstappen won. And then Zandvoort, home crowd. I nearly spilled my drink all over my laptop then. That's what happened.
That would have been terrifying.
Everything there. And then the weekend at Verstappen. So, yeah,
well,
I just think it's been great.
Speaking of Verstappen not feeling really any pressure, he's now got the biggest lead in the championship we've had since Silverstone. And we're going to Mexico, a track we all think is going to favour Red Bull. Do you think it's becoming? I mean, I know a lot of the thought going into the America weekend was that maybe this is now leaning towards Mercedes, very much so. But I think coming out of that race, it's looking to be Verstappen's to lose, which is a feeling I haven't really had since sort of September, I'd say, which actually isn't that long ago when you think about it. But it feels long ago in the grand scheme of F1. Do you guys think it's now Verstappen's to lose? Yeah,
I really do. I think, you know, the points margin, the fact that it's, you know, we're going to three effectively new tracks, or, you know, 2 new tracks and a modified track for the final 3 races. And like we saw this weekend, you know, predictions of where cars will be faster, you know, is tough to call. And personally, I think Mexico and Sao Paulo will be better for the Red Bull than the Mercedes. So I think, given all of those factors and the way that Red Bull have just been better this year, you know, it hurts to say, but they just have this hasn't been the Mercedes, the absolute slick, effective unit that we've been used to seeing. And I think what you mentioned there, Nigel. I genuinely think Verstappen has had more, incredible drives or more drives that are just worthy of being the champion. In that, where he's just needed to deliver, and they have, and the team has. And I don't think you can really say exactly the same for Hamilton. We've discussed before about how they've taken advantage of where they had the pace advantage and Mercedes haven't. But I think now that seems to be swinging back. At least I think over the next two races, if Verstappen wins both of those and Hamilton finish second, then we're looking at a 26-point gap, I think.
If he gets fastest lap, it's a minimum of 24 points if Verstappen wins both of them.
So that's potentially huge, and
I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's very little chance that will happen. I think there's still going to be some kind of incident or a moment, and whichever one it affects, it could be Hamilton, then the championship could be over. But equally, it could be Verstappen, I think. And I think it's still going to come down to that. I think I don't see a clean final 5 races. I still think there's going to be some kind of moment.
But I think what it feels like to me, if there is a clean final 5 races, I think Verstappen wins. If there's an incident that affects Hamilton, Verstappen wins. It's only to me the.
But if that works both ways. If there's an incident that happens to Verstappen, Hamilton wins, and so on.
But I think that's the only permutation in which Hamilton wins, or not the only.
Verstappen needs to hit. Yeah, okay, I get you. You think Verstappen needs to hit trouble, really, that's out of his control for him not to win. You think if it's left to Verstappen's devices and if he's got a reliable car and everything, he's got a hand on the trophy.
I think so, or at least a finger. I genuinely think if an accident, if there's an incident, it's likely 50-50 who it affects. So that splits them down both ways. But if we discount an incident, I think looking, because we can't predict that. We can't predict who's going to have a failure or who's going to have a crash or who's going to have someone hit them when they're trying to lap them or whatever. But I think looking at just the pace advantage that both teams and drivers seem to have, and everything that's happened this year with Mercedes not taking advantage when they have it and Red Bull doing that, really Mercedes need to win at least 3 of these races, or Hamilton needs to win at least 3 of these races, I think, to get it. And I don't know if I can see that happening.
There hasn't been a run of 5 races this year where there's nothing, there's been no drama between Hamilton and Verstappen. So I don't expect the next 5 races for that to happen. Or 6 races if we include the one at the weekend.
The first 5 races?
Well, Imola, I guess, that was...
Imola, arguably Bahrain. You could say.
Yeah.
Monaco, really. Hamilton was where? What was he? 7th.
I don't count that as an incident, though. That was just not being fast.
Baku was race 6, wasn't it?
Baku was race 6, yeah.
We're getting into 5 races here, but I don't know. I think with me, there's always been a lot of, after each race, my opinion just changes, and I don't see why that can't be the case after, say, Qatar or something, where it's just who knows what could happen, and maybe Mercedes waltz it, or maybe Red Bull work in the high-speed corners and surprise us all at Qatar. Who knows? And I think there's a lot to be said for really just don't put your eggs in any basket, just hope for the best for both drivers. But I know what both of you are saying, and I think I'm coming down to Nigel's perspective of okay, there's got to be another twist in the tail. That's just the nature of this championship. But we're not going to know. We'll wait and see. And I think we're all pretty excited to see how the statistics settle over the next 5 races. Adam, you're shaking your head.
Oh no, it was more
not excited.
No, I'm so excited, and I think the more I'm thinking about the narrative, the more I'm excited about it, because it really is the end of an era, and it almost feels like it's scripted this way, that you've got the end of the era that Mercedes have been dominant in. There's going to be a shift next year, but before that, everything is coming down to an exciting fight that could go down to the last race, that could go down to the last few laps in Abu Dhabi. And, that's so exciting, especially, we've got, particularly Brazil. I'm really looking forward to return there anyway. But the fact that there's so much narrative and there's so many tangents you can go off on in storylines of this championship, that it's almost perfect the way that it has come down to this. And I think the fact that we've only got 5 races left, it feels strange to think about, but yeah, I can't I can't put into words how excited I am, really. But yeah, the amount of narrative that is going into the epic showdown of this era is just, it's so exciting.
I couldn't have put it better. I think that brings to an end our little video on Hamilton versus Verstappen US Grand Prix edition. We'll probably come back to this debate for the next million years. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching our Winging It F1 video. I've been Freddie, he's been Adam, he's been Nigel. And yeah, you can follow us on @Winging It F1 on Twitter. Our various personal stuff will be in the description below, and you can listen to this as a podcast if you want to on Spotify, iTunes, your selected podcast provider. Just look up for the Winging It F1 podcast and you will get this and lots of other content and maybe some weird stuff from us. So thanks very much for watching. Please come back soon for the next vid and see you soon, guys. Goodbye.
Goodbye.